Hello, everyone, and welcome back to today's Training Industry Leader Talk and Developing Sellers Who Deliver Results, sponsored by Allego, Corporate Visions, Huic International, the Brooks Group, and Lone Rock Leadership. So I'm Liz Spate, the Events Marketing Specialist here at Training Industry, and I'm thrilled to have you with us here today. Before we get started, though, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speaker and get the most out of today's program. So again, feel free to use that chat window for any comments as well as questions. Jared will be addressing questions throughout as well as at the end of the session, so please do not hesitate to plug questions throughout. This will be a very interactive session, so you'll want to keep those chat windows open. And additionally, once the survey ends, or once the session ends, a brief survey will appear in your browser, so please take a moment to share your feedback on the session and speakers. And all of our sessions are being recorded and archived on trainingindustry.com, and you will receive a follow-up email from us that will include the link to the on-demand program for you to share with your team. Now, if this is your first training industry event, we would love to welcome you. We exist to make connections among learning and development professionals, and we offer tons of resources to support your role in L&D, like live events like today's Leader Talk, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, our membership, and our podcast. We would also love to hear about what you've learned from today's session on social media, so please follow us on your favorite platform so we can continue the conversation. And without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, Jared Jones. Jared Jones helps leaders turn cultural from abstract soft skills into operational drivers of results. As co-founder of Lone Rock Leadership, he has led more than 25 million in leadership development work, partnering with Fortune 500 companies, including Lockheed Martin, Cigna, Johnson & Johnson, and high-performing sales organizations to improve execution, accountability, and revenue performance. So with that, Jared, take it away.
All right, thanks, Liz. So, you guys, as we jump into this today, I'm going to have you in the chat, and I'm going to have you responding to some things or throwing some things in there as we go. So, we're going to make this as interactive as we can possibly make these webinars. So, accountability. I've been spending the last 20 years of my life working with accountability, helping sales teams, leadership teams with this concept of accountability. And so Accountability 2.0, there's some things we've learned about this over the years. And we've improved a few things. We feel like we've improved. You have to tell us if you think we've improved them, but we think we've improved upon a few things when it comes to this topic. So accountability is an interesting word, and it's an interesting topic to discuss. At Lone Rock, we believe in helping leaders develop to get results. At the end of the day, we're not working on anything that's not getting results. So when we talk about accountability, we're specifically talking about accountability as it relates to delivering. And so we'll actually jump into this. So here's some of the problems with accountability. I want you to go to the chat and I want you to just answer a few questions. One, if I were to ask people, how are you doing with accountability? I want you to put in the chat, how do you think most people would answer that question? If I were to just randomly walk around the halls in your organization or any other organization and ask people, how are you doing with accountability? Are you good? How would people respond to the question, how are you doing with accountability? Are you good at it? Are you not good at it? What would people say? So go into the chat, type in just what would you expect to hear people say to that question? How are you doing with accountability? This is where you guys jump in. Yep. Okay, good. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Needs improvement? Interesting. Yazid, I would love to hear that. I have yet to hear that. What most people say, like 95% of people say is, man, I'm doing really good. I'm accountable. I have yet to hear someone tell me, yeah, I'm really a complete train wreck when it comes to accountability. They don't. But here's the next question. Do you need more of it in your organization? And some of you have already started answering this question. If I were to ask that question, do you need more accountability in your organization? What would people say? Yeah, it's absolutely like 100% of the people say, yeah, we need more accountability in this organization. So do you guys see the paradox? Yeah, Marilyn, you're getting there, right? Do you see the problem with this? If we need so much more of it in the organization, if we're all doing so well with it, why do we need so much more of it in the organization? So there is a gap occurring in this conversation somewhere. So we all think we're great, we all think we're accountable, but yet we need so much more of it in the organization. So the word accountability is problematic. When you hear the word accountability, like if I were to say to you, hey, we're going to have you go to an accountability training, like the hair on the back of your neck immediately stands up. No one wants to go to an accountability training because we all think we're good at it. It's everybody else. So immediately when the word accountability gets thrown out there, it's this us versus them. me versus everyone else or whatever it is. Like there's just this natural tendency that kicks in. It's in our human DNA. So the word accountability has got some problems with it. Now, when we talk about accountability, accountability for what? What are we talking about accountability for? We're not talking about accountability for just random tasks and activities. We're talking about accountability for results. So here's what I want you to do in the chat next. I want you to type into the chat, give me a specific target, something that your team, your organization has identified as critical for 2026. It's a result that you have to deliver. It's a critical delivery. It's a critical outcome we have to get. I want you to type into the chat. Just give me one. Give me a few of these. And these are things typically like revenue, new product release, margins, something similar to that, right? So throw some of those in there. What are some results that for this year we just have to deliver on that result, that number? Okay, good. So yeah, revenue when it comes to sales, no one's gonna say anything other than revenue for the most part, right? But yeah, new clients, right? Good, Barbara. I like that. That's a good example of one that might be a little different than just pure revenue, but it's connected to it, obviously. Okay, so here's the thing. I want you to think of that result that you're typing in the chat, the one that you have in your mind, and I want you to imagine it's the end of 2026. The year ends. You missed it. Didn't even come close. I mean, blew it by a long shot. What would you hear people in your organization actually saying to explain and justify why we missed it? So in the chat, just a couple of words or two, like, and by the way, you guys, these are the real things. Like, there's real stuff here. This isn't just make believe stuff. What would people point to if we were to miss it this year? And again, we're pretending here, you're going to hit these numbers, right? But if you were to just kind of go down that road and think about how people would be positioning this in their own minds, what would they start saying? What would they use as a way to explain and justify why we're not doing it? All right, so start looking at some of the stuff that's in there, right? And by the way, you guys, every single one of those is real. They are. Not a single one of those is just some rando make believe thing. So when we talk about this and we see this happening in an organization, what I want you to consider are two words: powerful and powerless. I just want you to think about that for a minute. Those two words: powerful, powerless. If you were to consider everything that we just listed on this screen, would that does that appear if someone were to come into your office and just start listing all that stuff, would that sound powerful or powerless to you? And if you think about that, right? We've all been in this situation. We've been in that mode. We've felt powerless ourselves. Have any of you felt powerless at any given point in time? Absolutely, you have. So let's talk about why that happens. What is powerless? Powerless is a belief that the outcomes I'm getting are determined by circumstances, systems, things outside of my control. Everything is out of my control. That's what powerless. Look at everything on that list. Those are things that I feel like I can't do anything about. I can't control. So that's what's making me powerless. I'm feeling powerless because of that stuff. And it's all this stuff. You guys just listed them all, right? It's not my job. It's the market. It's my boss. It's a policy. It's next quarter. Just wait till next quarter. We'll be there, right? So here's the question. Why do we go here? Why do we do that? What is it about our wiring that makes us want to lean into this powerless place? So in the chat, just give me some answers on that. Why do we do this? Why do people go powerless? Why do I go powerless? Why do you go powerless at times? What is it that is inert in just innate, I'm sorry, inert, innate in our DNA that makes us want to do that? Okay, easy place to hide, Colin. It's way easier to do this. There's no question. It's so much easier to go powerless. It takes a lot more work to be powerful, but it's way easier to just blame somebody else. You guys, I want you to think about the word excuse. The word excuse is a noun and a verb. I have my excuse. I am now excused from having to do anything else on this. So just think about that for a minute. If that's what's going on in our mind, I've got my story that gets me off the hook, that explains and justifies my lack of performance. I have that excuse. I am now justified in not doing anything else about it. I can kick back and just think I'm safe because I've got my excuse. And what does that do? It creates a self-fulfilling prophecy of not hitting the result at all because there's no way you're not even working on it anymore. You've given up. So this powerless piece, this is a real big issue because when we go there and stay there, we tend to surrender. And when we surrender, we've locked in the non-performance that we were worried about from the beginning. Now, what's interesting about this is it is a bit of a safety mechanism, right? We feel like if I can come up with all the stuff that explains and justifies me not performing, then I'm off the hook. Well, then I'm safe. But you guys, I want you to consider, have you ever been in a position where someone is coming to you and they're giving you all this stuff? I can't do it because of this, the market, the job, the policy, this, whatever. They're giving all that stuff to you. If you're a leader and your direct report is coming to you with all that stuff, the first thing that starts going through your brain is, oh no, did I hire the wrong person? Do I have the wrong, who else do I need to get in here to do this? That's where people's brains go. Who else do I need to get in here to help do this? And then the immediate thing that happens is you start, the person who thinks they're being safe because they've given the whole story, you start feeling like, okay, I'm good because I've got my excuse. Meanwhile, they're planning to replace you. You couldn't put yourself in a more vulnerable position than you just did. So we think we're being safe by listing all this stuff out. In reality, we're making ourselves more at risk, more vulnerable than we've ever been. Because the leader, the person who's hearing all that stuff is thinking, I got to get the result. So I got to get somebody in here who can do it because this person obviously can't. So I just want you to consider this for a moment. Now I'm going to play a video for you. We've got videos throughout. And this, we're going to kind of highlight for you how our team approaches some of this. So let's watch this video, and then I'll come back.
When John took over as the head of a food manufacturing company, he was faced with a daunting task. His company had a shining reputation, but it was hemorrhaging money. It was $1 billion company that was literally staying afloat by maxing out their credit cards. John knew that he was hired to turn things around, and he didn't have long to make that impact. So one of his early meetings was in a small, modest meeting room at a hotel located near the airport. The executive team didn't have the funds to pay for anything fancy. But in that meeting, John needed his team to make a decision. It wasn't a collective decision, but an individual one. He needed each of them to decide how they could play a major role in changing the course of the company. Many of the executives had been at the organization for years. They loved to talk about the storied history of the brand and how amazing the culture used to be. They were quick to throw blame everywhere and point out the many CEOs that had come and gone over the last few years. But John needed them to focus on the future. So in that meeting, he rolled out his vision of what could be. If this team was willing to lean into creating the future rather than stewing about the present, they could do something pretty amazing. John was asking for the team at the top of the org chart to shift from being powerless to powerful. He needed them to not just take accountability for turning around this company, but to view themselves as actually having the power, the energy within themselves to steer the ship back on course. You see, being powerless means focusing on others. It means being consumed with things that are out of our control. But choosing to show up powerfully means looking within ourselves and making a choice to focus on what's in our control. It means stop surrendering your energy to others and create it for yourself.
So you think about these two words, powerful and powerless. We're not talking about power in the form of power over somebody else or where you sit on the org chart or any of that stuff. We're talking about power like a battery. Do you have a full battery? Do you have enough energy, enough power in your battery to actually do what needs to be done, to deliver the result? Or has it been completely drained and you're now powerless and you're leaning into all the things you can't do and you can't control and you can't influence? So when you think about that, it is a choice on which one of those we lean into. Doesn't mean you can change some of the external forces coming at you. And every rep, every salesperson in any organization has stuff pushing on them that's outside their control. There is always that reality. By the way, I grew up in sales. I've spent the vast majority of 2 decades of my career in some form of sales. I've run sales teams. I've been a sales rep, and I've worked with lots and lots of sales teams over the last 20 years. If there's just always something that's pushing on my territory is not as good as that territory, or that person's got this one big account that's just renewing every year and pumping their sales up every year, or I don't have this right. You can lean into any number of things. But here's my question. How many of you have seen someone a sales rep, who was put into a territory that was considered a bad territory, and all of a sudden it's cranking? They turn it around and they start pumping out all kinds of really good results out of that territory that was considered a bad territory. You guys, we've all seen that. Everyone has seen that. So that is the simplest example of it's a choice. You can go powerful or you can go powerless. And we all choose it every single day. So how do we actually start to optimize the ability to be powerful? Our choice to be powerful. There's a system to this. We call this the Power Operating System, the Power OS. The Power Operating System is, if you can just imagine how many sales reps, if we could get an entire team, even if we could get 30% of our team thinking powerful more than powerless, what would that do to the results we're getting on our team? This simple concept, you all, in fact, we pride ourselves on simplicity. It's way easier to make something complicated. It's a lot harder to make it simple and elegant and right. So when you see the simplicity of this, don't miss the amount of work that went into making it this simple, because it would be so much easier to make it complicated. But we've had to work really hard over the years to make it this simple. So here's the first step. The first step in the Power Operating System is discover. You have to lean into what you don't know, what you need to understand. Discover what are the options? What are the opportunities? Here's another video from Carrie on our team that kind of lays this out.
One of the largest helicopter manufacturers in the world was having major problems between their sales and operations teams. The sales team was responsible for getting new orders. The operations team executed on the orders and made sure they were fulfilled. We were asked to meet with the leadership teams of both departments to try and help them resolve their differences. When we arrived at the site of the meeting in Connecticut, the tension in the room was obvious. You could feel it in the moment you walked in and tried to engage in small talk. Both teams sat on different sides of the room. They were polite, but barely. When we started digging into how performance for the business unit was going, the finger pointing began immediately. The ops team started telling us all about how the sales team overpromised. They would commit to anything just to get the large orders in the door. Then, when the commitments made to customers weren't fulfilled, the sales team threw the ops team under the bus. The sales team couldn't disagree more with that narrative. They said they were just doing what leadership required of them. They were delivering revenue targets, and that the ops team needed to be less focused on blame and have a more solution-oriented mindset. For hours, the team did nothing but blame each other. Each side considered themselves powerless to solve the problem. But then things shifted. The leader of the ops team showed humility and curiosity. She didn't fall on the sword, but she did start to ask the sales leadership team what her team could be doing differently that might help them. She leaned into what we call discover. That small shift made all the difference. It opened the door to figuring out how this issue could actually be solved. When the ops leader started asking questions, when she got curious and was actually open to considering what her team might be able to do differently, walls started to fall in the room and minds began to be open to focusing on solutions rather than obstacles. That moment was pivotal to those two teams working together in a way that was critical to the organization hitting its targets.
So if you guys think about this, getting curious, there's obstacles associated with every territory, every target, every result, everything. There's always obstacles. You got to understand what those are. You can't ignore those, right? And you have to validate the reality of those. That's the reality of your situation. But you also need to cultivate the opportunities that do exist within each scenario. So what else can I do? So curiosity is that discover piece. That step is really digging into the opportunities and obstacles and leaning into those opportunities. I'll give you a classic example of this. We're working with a sales team where the VP of sales, it was a medical device company. And if you're not familiar with the industry, they're putting out new stuff every 6 to 9 months. This is not the pharmaceutical side where they're taking 15 years to get a new product out. These are like new hip joints and, syringes and stuff, all kinds of different things. And so they hadn't had a new product in 3 years. Meanwhile, their competitors are popping stuff out every year. So you can imagine the sales team is sitting here going, well, the reason we can't sell more is we don't have any new products and all of our competitors have new products. So they were actually ready to launch a new product and they were all excited. And Dennis, the VP of sales, had his annual sales meeting kicking off in January where they were going to do the big product launch for the new product. Super excited. All their numbers, their sales numbers had been put into corporate and they'd committed to what they were going to do for the next year with the new product sales. Now, December, the VP of R&D calls Dennis up, VP of sales, and says, we hit a snag with the FDA. Oh, well, what does that mean? Well, we're going to be delayed on the new product launch. How long? It's going to be another year. Dennis was like, what, are you kidding me? I just gave all my numbers to corporate based on the new product sales. And by the way, how many years are we going to keep doing this, right? You can imagine the frustration that Dennis was feeling. So he met it was actually the St. Louis airport. He and his 3 different leaders across the country, the 4 of them got together in a room. It was at the Delta room, whatever there. And they started going through this. He tells them, hey, we're going to be delayed. He tells his direct reports, we're going to be delayed. Dennis does. Their immediate response was, Dennis, we have to go powerless for a minute. He's like, okay, looked at his watch, goes 10 minutes. Let's go powerless for 10 minutes. And they did. They went off. They blamed I can't believe how did they not know this was coming? Why is this happening again? What's wrong with they just blamed every possible scenario. Then Dennis's watch goes off. He says, all right, we just spent 10 minutes totally powerless. We got it off our chest. We got another hour here. Let's spend the next hour digging into how we're going to solve this. What else can we do? We're not changing the number. We committed the numbers to corporate. Let's figure out how we're going to hit that number with what we have. And the next hour, they put the genesis of a plan together. Well, you guys, by the end of the year, they actually crushed the number. And they did it because they chose to get curious at what other opportunities existed inside their current customer base where they could sell some of the existing service packages on their existing products that they had always talked about doing but had never done. And that became a massive boon for them. So that would have never happened had they not chosen to be powerful versus powerless in that moment. So the next step is decide. So you discover, you get curious, you understand the opportunities and the obstacles, and you lean into the opportunities. Then you decide by prioritizing the opportunities. You pick the things you can control the most and the things you can lean into the most. And you actually choose the path you're going to follow to actually do that.
It was late September in Manchester, New Hampshire. The team at Jetboil, the well-known camping stove brand, had just secured one of their biggest holiday orders. Thousands of their top-selling stoves were scheduled to ship to outdoor retailers before Black Friday. Then came a supply chain issue. A shipment of aluminum heat exchangers essential to their signature system was stuck in a cargo backlog off of the California coast. The timing couldn't have been worse. The parts wouldn't arrive for weeks. Deadlines were in jeopardy. The operations team began drafting notices to delay the launch. The conversation focused on everything they couldn't do. But then someone asked a different question. What do we still have on hand? That single shift in mindset changed everything. They inventoried their stock, and what looked like spare parts started to look like a solution. Engineers quickly mocked up a hybrid model using existing inventory. It met safety standards, delivered core performance, and could be shipped immediately. Retailers approved the change, no questions asked. The new model sold out faster than expected. Customers praised its compact size and reliability. And the best part? It costs less to make and had higher margins. What started as a stumbling block became a breakthrough. The obstacle that threatened to stall everything actually forced a smarter solution. So next time you're stuck, ask yourself, Am I looking at what's missing or what's possible? The power to deliver might be hiding in plain sight.
And this decide piece, you guys, this is really choosing which of those things that you got curious about and looked at in your discover phase. It's picking the one or two things that you're going to lean into and go after. And then in this case, they went after, let's use parts. We've got existing parts. So let's figure out how to use the existing parts. They decided to do that. They couldn't control getting the stuff they needed to get any faster. They couldn't control the shipping opportunities. They could control what they had in their warehouse. So the decide piece is you looking at your own situation and recognizing, what do I control here? What do I still have at my disposal? And then what else can I do? That question, what else can I do? And recognize that's not what more can I do. We're not asking people to just work harder and do more. It's what else can I do? You might need to stop doing certain things and start doing other things, but what else can I do to get the result? What's different that I'm trying right now that I could do to get the result? So once you've discovered and then you've decided on the things you're going to lean into that you can control, you do. And you guys, I'm going at Mach 2 at 30,000 feet here to get through all this in a short period of time. There's obviously more stuff in this that you're seeing on some of these slides that we're skipping and going past. So just letting you know there's some things we could do there. But when it comes to do, one of the most impactful things is create new systems and routines, rigor around how you're going to do whatever you've picked to do. So if you've picked, we're going to do, use new parts. Well, then what is that? Well, we've got to go, inventory the parts we have and then create a system for how we're going to check in on that for the next 8 weeks or 2 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever it is. So as a sales rep, it's looking at, okay, if I'm going to make 18 new calls every day, well, how am I going to do that? What part of my day am I going to do that in? What part of my day am I going to follow up on? Do I set up some times on my calendar that are blocked off for that specific thing? What habits are you going to create that will actually engage that new idea that you've decided to do? So discover, decide, do becomes a really simple operating system that you can follow, you can remember. So whenever you're feeling powerless, the question is, what do I need to discover, decide, do? And you now know how to create momentum and get moving in the right direction. Here's the point. When you're powerless, it robs you of all the energy that you need to accomplish the goals, to get the results, the great things that you're trying to deliver. So the option is to choose power. Make sure that you're putting yourself in a position where you can lean into the things you can control, decide and prioritize on those things, and then create habits that actually get you there. Now, the power operating system that we've just walked through, we actually teach this in what we call Power in 30. It's a 30-day cohort. It's a course. If you go to lonerock.io, you can actually find all kinds of stuff around this. Liz, there's a link, if you can put that link into the chat. This link will take you specifically to information on what we just described. There's a position paper, and there's like a sales brochure in there. There's some other things you can pull down, you can download. But if you have interest in more information on this particular course or topic. Now, let me tell you about how this course actually works. We have found that over time, leaders need 4 things. They need to know how to deliver results. They need to know how to lead through change. They need to know how to get more accountability, and they need to know how to make better decisions. Those are what we call the core 4 operating systems for any leader. So if you've got leaders in your organization where accountability is an issue, that's one of the 4 courses. There's a course for each of these other 3 as well. So all 4 of these has a course associated with it. And we actually teach more about all 4 of those courses in what we call the Core 4 Masterclass. This is a 2-hour virtual or in-person event where you can go deeper on all 4 of these topics. We go deeper on the accountability topic that I just went through. We go deeper on decision-making, deeper on leading through change, and deeper on how do you set results and deliver on results. All of this, all 4 of those are the things that we've heard over and over again from leaders in the decades of doing this that we need our leaders to do to get more effective at leading their teams to get the outcomes we need to get. So if you're interested in going to the masterclass, you can use that QR code, scan it, and you can sign up for that. Now, let me tell you about how these courses work. So if you do Power in 30 and you want to take your team through this, we've learned that trying to do one course in 8 hours, while that's effective to a certain degree, it's even more effective to spread it out over the month. So how we do that is we start, let's say this is week 1. We start with a live web class. It might be a 60-minute or a 90-minute live class. It's just like this. There's chat, although we're doing it as a meeting, so people are coming off a mute and we're having conversation and we're talking about stuff. But we're doing just enough to get you introduced to the first week's content. So this first week might just be the concept powerful, powerless. And then the second week might be discover. The third week might be decide, and then do is the fourth week. But we do this throughout the week. So the first part of the week is the live web class. The second part of the week is they go into the learner portal and they watch some of the videos that I've showed you today. Those videos are just 2 to 5 minute videos, and they're actually using their participant guide to capture some thoughts and ideas of what they need to do differently in their part of the world to get their result. And then the last thing is we have them huddle up with 2 or 3 other members of the cohort of their team where they share ideas that they've got from that week's content. That's the week. And they do that for 4 weeks. It's rinse and repeat for 4 weeks, and that's 30 days. The participant guide helps kind of connect the dots for them through all 4 weeks. They're actually working on stuff while they're learning stuff. And you spread that learning out throughout the month. And that gives them the capability to not only understand the skills they're developing, but apply them in a way that actually gets the results that they need to get. And so the Core 4 Masterclass is a way to kind of introduce to not only the accountability piece, but also leading through change, decision-making, and delivering results. So that's an option for you if you want it. There's no charge for these Core 4 Masterclasses. We do these for free, but that's another way to get into that. So I wanted to leave some time here for us to get into some Q&A. So I've given you, so back to the accountability topic specifically, right? Let's dig in on accountability a little bit more. If you guys, one other thought I want to give you on this is I want you to consider what's the difference between a reason and an excuse. Is there a difference? So go to the chat. Would you say there's a difference between reasons and excuses? How would you answer that question? Is there a difference between reasons and excuses? Go to the chat and just type in however you want to describe that. Now, some of you are like, that feels like there's a trick question here. No, there's no trick question. Just how do you initially respond to that? Is there a difference between reasons and excuses? And I'm getting you to think about this for a reason, and you'll see where this is going to go. But how do we do that? Are reasons and excuses different, or are they the same? Like, is there a difference? One is legitimate, okay? Another's a way to dodge accountability. Courtney, I like that. Reason provides concrete evidence, and excuse does not. Okay, Lisa, I love that. That's all. Lisa, we always get somebody who talks about data versus not data and facts versus whatever. And it's absolutely a normal place to go. See, Marilyn's saying the same thing, a valid explanation while an excuse. So you guys, I want you to think about this. A good excuse is full of data. It's full of all that stuff. There's real things happening. So the best excuses have the most data in them. So it's not about data. It's not about it being legitimate or not, right? They're real things. They're legitimate things that people are using as excuses. So if you think about this, it's a really simple aha that I had a long time ago on this. If you consider what the difference is, if you look at a reason and an excuse on paper, just write them out and don't put any context around it or any voice or any inflection or anything. Just write them out. A reason and an excuse actually look identical. There's no difference between the two. Now, we do believe there is a difference. We do believe there is a difference. The difference is how you use them. A reason and an excuse changes based on how you use them. They start out the same, but they change based on how they're being used. So here's the point. A reason becomes an excuse when you stop working toward the solution. Right? So consider that for a minute. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. A reason or excuse, they are the same thing out of the gate, but they get used in a way that turns them into something else. So if we're saying, well, because of the market conditions and because of that shipping issue, we can't get the result, that's an excuse. If we're saying we got market conditions and shipping issues, and we're not going to hit the result unless we do something different. So here's some thoughts on what we could do. Those are now reasons that are in the mix, but we're still working toward the solution. We're still working toward the result. So they're just reasons. They're not excuses. Remember, the excuse excuses you from having to do anything else. So when we are throwing out an excuse, we're excusing ourselves from solving the problem. That's why leaders get so bonkers when someone comes to them with a whole litany of excuses, because it feels defeatist, it feels powerless, and it feels like we're surrendering. So we need to hear the reasons. You need to validate the obstacles that are in front of you. Those are the obstacles in most cases. So just recognize that when we're in this mode, we can feel like we're taking accountability because we're listing everything that's going wrong or that's in the way that are going to be problematic for us. Okay, great. But that doesn't mean that's where we should stop the conversation. We need to keep that conversation going toward the solution. So those are just reasons. They're not excuses. We don't need excuses. We need reasons and solutions. So interesting to just consider that for a moment. Okay, Liz, where are Q&A? Do we have Q&A stuff that's in here already? I'm not seeing where that
I
might
was gonna
be.
say they're honestly not. I think you've been blowing away with all of like with multiple word definitions. Like I mean, even personally me, I feel like I have definitely been time and time again to be like no excuses. And now I'm like, oh, should think it differently.
Okay.
Um, but yeah,
We
I
all do it. It's human nature. You can't avoid it. Oh, by the way, here's another thing. You heard me tell that story about Dennis and giving 10 minutes of his team to be powerless in the beginning of the meeting. Do that. The reason why we don't want to do that is we worry we're going to go down a black hole and we're never going to get out of that conversation. But if you know the language powerful, powerless, just think about how powerful that common language is across the sales team. If we can just say, hey, we're going to go powerless for 5 minutes and just let everyone do it, you've given everyone permission. You let the air out of the system, you let the pressure out of the system, and then you can eject by saying, okay, we got the next little bit. Let's be powerful. You just pull the ripcord, you pull the parachute, and you don't have to stay in that conversation anymore. You shift the conversation over to what does it look like to be powerful? So that language, powerful, powerless, becomes a really, really important lever and tool in your hands, especially as a leader. So, but an individual contributor, even myself in the morning, if I'm feeling powerless on something, okay, I'm going to go powerless for 5 minutes. I'm going to write out all the stuff that I'm feeling powerless about right now. Get it off my chest. Okay, now what am I going to do to get powerful here? And just now consciously shift gears and choose to be powerful. So as we're talking about this within teams and dynamics, there's some little tools and tips that we can use to ensure that we're actually taking accountability.
Beautiful.
All right.
Well, I was gonna say nobody's left yet, so I don't know if people are typing in great questions. So with that, I can ask what I think everybody's thinking is a question, and then if not, we can give everybody a couple more minutes back on their break. But you gave a lot of good information. What would be the first step after this? We're leaving this session. What would be the first step that you would recommend everybody take?
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in more information, obviously reach out to us. You can get all of our contact information off our website, lonerock.io. You can go to that link that we put in there earlier. If you can put that maybe back in, Liz, on the powerless page. That's the powerful powerless page in our website. It's not powerless; it's the powerful powerless power in 30 page, we should say. But that'll get you more information on this specific topic that we've covered today. There's a few members of my team that will reach out to you if you put anything in there. You put your information in, and we'll get on a phone call and talk to you more about what this might look like. Oh, I guess another thing to say is how to do this. You can do the cohort approach that I showed you, the 4-week approach. But if you've got a sales meeting coming up where you want us to do a 2-hour keynote or something like that, we do that stuff as well. We can do something like this virtually with your team. There's lots of different methodologies for us to be introduced to your team. If your sales leadership team needs a little bit of context around this, we'll jump on a call and walk them through some of that and share some stories and examples. Any of that stuff is open. So if you're looking for any help at all from any of that from us, reach out to us. You can also send me an email at jared.jones@lonerock.io. So simple, jared.jones, first name, last name, .jones at lonerock.io. So just send me an email if you want to reach out to me directly. I'm one of the co-founders at Lone Rock. We have a team that's located throughout the country. And we work with a lot of the Fortune 10 to Fortune 50 companies. We work with pretty large organizations, as you heard Liz talk about, Lockheed Martin, J&J, Cigna, and so on and so forth. But we also have a lot of smaller companies that work with us and buy our training and use this stuff inside their own organizations because it's really easy to implement. And if you want to become a certified trainer yourself, you can do that. We have that model as well, where people can learn to teach this themselves inside their own organization. So lots of options.
Yes, perfect. Well, no questions. You left them speechless. It was a great conversation through the chat, so thank you. Keep the engagement going. But Jared, is there anything else you would like to say before we give them their next break?
Nope, I think we're good. I'll give them a few minutes back.
Beautiful. Thanks,
How's that
Jared.
for accountability? We're ending
Appreciate
early.
it. Perfect way of ending it. And those beautiful hearts. Thank you guys so much. A lot of thank yous. I imagine you're going to be blown up after this. Quiet on the webinar, but your inbox will be different. So
Thanks,
with that,
everybody.
yes, with that, we're going to do more like a 20-ish so minute break. Up next, we do have Tony and Laura for their session sponsored by Huaith International, how to embed sales behaviors so they actually stick. So again, in just a moment, I'm going to end this session. You can join our next session by returning to that event lobby and going to the session tab. I hope you all stick around for our next session, which will begin at the top of the hour. I will see you all there. Bye, everybody.